Good evening. Welcome in another YouTube live show. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, thank you for tuning in tonight. I'm John Kurtz. On the eve of my trip out to Frisco, to the DFW area for Big 12 Media Days, we've got a show here that you can look at this as a bit of a primer, I suppose, for Big 12 Media Days. But we do have some really significant things to talk about here, namely that the SEC is in a bit of a tailspin again, particularly one SEC school, particularly Texas, in a bit of a tailspin because of one Big 12 school, the same one that seems to really be ruffling feathers in college athletics right now because they're coming at it hard. They're coming at it hard. I have developed a theory here. I think it's a really good take that I found from a fellow, someone who covers the Big 12, well, someone who covers college football nationally, Shahan Jayaraja. I heard him drop a nugget about who he thinks the Big 12's most important team is this year. And frankly, I could not agree more after listening to his point. I think it's a very valuable take. So I'm going to reveal that to you. We do have a Big 12. I'll say realignment scenario. Payson Cougar fan is already on to this. It was laid out there by the Athletics' Stuart Mandel. I got a hell of a reaction on Twitter when I asked folks about it. Very strong, and very strong in one direction. So I want to discuss that. And finally, we've got some details on the ACC settlement. Details on the ACC settlement, namely that Florida State and Clemson came out of this like gangbusters, man. I'll tell you what, they used their leverage very well. It did not land them in the Big Ten or SEC as soon as they probably would like. But, man, outside of that, they did about as well as you possibly could. So there's a lot, man. There's a lot today. So please do file in, everybody who's here. I appreciate you. Make sure you subscribe to the channel and like the video. Both of those things are totally free and really help. So I do have to thank all the subscribers as of right now. We just hit 25K. So over the 25,000 mark here on this channel. I appreciate that immensely. Would never have guessed that back in like 2019 when I was just humming along, doing a little bit of K-State content here or there. I remember being a big deal when I passed 1,000. So anyway, thank you very, very much, everybody who's here, who subscribes, who watches the content. You can submit a super chat tonight by clicking the $ below the chat box. I would appreciate anybody who does that. It's a way to guarantee that your question or comment makes it on the show. So I do appreciate everybody who comes in that way. And we have a couple of Venmo comments to get to. You guys know the drill on Venmo. It is John-Kurtz-4 on Venmo. If you want to contribute that way, I will kick off the next show with it. So if you're not watching live, that's a way to stay in touch with the channel. Well, TRT and me, I knew somebody would ask about this. Wear your sunscreen, kids. I had some precancerous little dots on my skin that you could probably have seen before, and I had to get them frozen off, which was like kind of miserable for like 4 hours after that, man. Like it hurt like hell. I was having such a hard time concentrating at work after that happened. And then now, yeah. I mean, you should have seen it a couple of days ago. This was like on Wednesday. So we're like 4 or 5 days out on this thing of these things healing. It's pretty gross. So, and I was told it was just too much sun exposure as obviously a fair-skinned person over the years. So I got a little bit of a lecture from the dermatologist. So I guess that can be my PSA to all of you. That is my PSA. Wear sunscreen, kids, when you're going out there. Okay. Let's start with the Venmo comments. Again, John-Kurtz-4 on Venmo. For those of you who are so inclined, I got to give a shout out to my friend Polly. Thank you, Polly. She reminded me, which this is another thing. Thank you to everybody who has subscribed to Open for Business, my Big 12 newsletter, ofbnews.com to subscribe to that. I'm like 25 shy, I believe, of 4,500 as of right now. And that is, we've just passed the 1 year mark. So Polly said tomorrow is 1 year since you launched Open for Business. It's an amazing success in such a short time. Thank you for your tireless efforts to inform and entertain. I can't wait for football. Go Cats. Thank you for reminding me of that, Polly. I knew it was coming up. And I kind of forgot about it. I've been busy trying to get everything ready for my media days trip, and had not even thought about that. Genuinely appreciate that. That is very kind of you, and thank you for your support as always. Much, much, much appreciated. And Bob, what's up, Bob? Thank you, Bob, for your comment. John-Kurtz-4 on Venmo. Bob, BYU fan, says losing Jake Retzloff wasn't fun. Long term, it would be worse, though, if BYU let things slide. I'm grateful for the good things he did, such as graduating in April, and hope he finds a good school for his final year, ideally not on BYU's schedule. Well, that's very, very kind words there, Bob. I think a very stable take, right, in this world of internet hot takes and people letting their emotion just guide them too strongly, Bob. That's very, very measured. So I can appreciate that very much. And yeah, the Jake Retzloff thing, Bob, that is interesting is, the reporting, like the Deseret News crew there seemed to be, it sounded like this week. It wasn't just rumors, like some of the reporters involved here, and I'm not trying to call them out by any means. Who knows? There's a lot that could be going on behind the scenes right now if schools are jockeying for Jake Retzloff's services. But it sounded like this week, I thought we were going to get a destination for him. And we don't have one as of right now. Obviously, the early indications were that Notre Dame was a possibility. Tennessee makes a ton of sense if the insinuation is, hey, it's a big school that needs quarterback help, that needs veteran quarterback help. I mean, Tennessee would be basically at the top of that list. It's why they came and tried to peruse the Big 12 to pick up a quarterback, and you had like Josh Hoover and Avery Johnson being pursued, right? So I would think either of those would probably be the two that would make the most sense. But the longer it goes, the more I start to wonder, like, okay, is it not going to be a school that's as big as one of those two programs? We'll see. We'll see. Maybe I'll have a better idea after going to Big 12 Media Days. BYU is up on Tuesday. It's going to be a busy day for me, folks. I'll see what I'm able to do content-wise in terms of like a live show. We're supposed to, let me let you know a little secret here. Supposed to have Ethernet this year, which thank you, Big 12. Thank you. Maybe I shouldn't count my chickens before they hatch on that. But that would make a huge difference and allow me to potentially do a little bit more in terms of a live show, maybe. So we'll see. Wednesday, I'm just going to have like way more time in terms of flexibility, because Tuesday I got to get K-State for, all 6 K-State participants in Media Day for the 3-Maw podcast. So that'll take up a lot of time. And then that's also just like a loaded day. Like BYU is that day. I'm trying to remember. It was just like, that was one where content-wise for me, it was going to be a lot heavier of a lift. So Wednesday I'll have a little more free time. But it's going to be a blast, man. I'm looking forward to it so much. I'm loving the conversation in the chat about the sunscreen and vitamin D and from the sun, because I love this question. Somebody answer this for me, because this is why I know that I'm like the palest dude out there, but I love getting the vitamin D from the sun, and you feel so much better being out of the sun. I do actually hang out at the pool quite a bit in the summer because you feel so much better the rest of the day. I would love to know the answer to that question too, Your Honor. But it doesn't really matter for me because I got doctor's orders, man. I gotta lather up from here on out for the rest of this life. So anyway, I have not heard anything, long story short, on Jake Retzloff. I don't know anything either about Jake Retzloff's sunscreen usage. So no idea what to tell you guys on that front. All right. At the risk of belaboring that point, please do again like the video, subscribe to the channel, subscribe to the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter. But let's get into it, okay? I need to today basically update a video that I made a couple of weeks ago, because the premise is the exact same. We've got one Big 12 team that's just driving the SEC freaking insane, breaking the brains of the SEC. They're at it again, and this time I think it really exposes a particular hypocrisy from SEC fans and maybe bleeding a little bit into college football fans in general, in terms of what the reaction to this has been, like how people treat this. All right. So it's really round 3 for our friends in Lubbock of getting the SEC all in a tizzy. This has happened multiple times now. First and foremost, it was the football transfer portal, right? There's been a lot of talk, a lot of discussion about what Texas Tech has done in the football transfer portal. They've got the number one class. I don't care that it's not number one across the board. It's the number one class according to On3, which is the recruiting site that I look at the most. It's the number one class in the country. Basically, every major defensive lineman that entered the portal, Texas Tech went after and got. UCF fans know about that. Lee Hunter, Romello Height from Georgia Tech, David Bailey from Stanford. James Blanchard made it clear in that article that Shahan Jayaraja wrote recently for CBS Sports that they targeted the offensive and defensive line. Like, they wanted to be better up front. They wanted to make that a priority in the portal. And damn it if they didn't do that in spades. Like, tremendous job there and help push them to the number one portal class in the country. And so he's looking around like, well, what the hell? How is Texas Tech doing that? You're not supposed to be here. Like, you're not supposed to be allowed in this club. How did you get past the velvet rope? This is upper crust SEC territory. This is Oregon territory. Like, this is Lane Kiffin, Dan Lanning. What are you doing here? And so that naturally sends people spy. Well, something must be wrong. This college football system that we're in right now must be pretty screwed up if Texas Tech is here. How could Texas Tech be here, right? Well, then you get into softball season, okay? And in softball season, Texas Tech fans really, I mean, I have to just chuckle. It really was funny seeing some of the reaction to this. I mean, Texas Tech fans just got uppity SEC softball fans completely out of their minds. Now, this was a pretty stark case. Like, it's one thing to have the number one portal class in the country. Texas Tech had 4 of the top 6 players in the softball portal. And obviously, Najari Candidate is there again for $1 million plus next year. That deal had come out. So, Texas Tech was completely cornering the market on softball talent. But, legal way, teach me the rules, I'll play the game. They were doing what you can do in this era. And Oklahoma fans in particular were very up in arms about this. So really, I mean, Texas Tech just kind of owns the Red River at this point. You get Texas fans all upset with what I'm about to mention in just a moment. First, it was Oklahoma fans with the softball thing, which is kind of ironic. It's like Oklahoma has been so ridiculously, just ludicrously dominant in softball. And okay, because you lost a little bit of the complete vice grip you had on the sport for the better part of a decade. Like, it's just unfair, or we need to look, ain't no fun when the rabbit got the gun. Like, sometimes other teams are going to be able to do something. And that's really the beauty of this era. That is the beauty of this era. Again, I know some people don't like it and won't, but the beauty of this era is it gives teams like Texas Tech a chance to do things like this. And now Texas Tech has landed the number one high school player in the state of Texas in the 2026 class, top 20 to 25, depending on where you're looking, prospect in the entire 2026 class. 5-star offensive tackle, Felix Ojo, assumed to be a Texas Longhorn. And this is really the rub here. Not only number one player in Texas, but it was a pretty quiet sneaking in there kind of job by Texas Tech to get this one, because if you're following the recruitment, it really seemed like it was Texas and Ohio State, but mostly Texas. Like, nobody seemed to think Ohio State had a great shot here to get in. And then, bam, a couple days before, you start to get some smoke, and he's a Red Raider all of a sudden. And the report comes out. His agent is putting this out there. So, obviously he has incentive to want to get this reported. And this is where, agents, I understand it's good for their business. Student athlete, this can be a problem. Ask Coleman Hawkins about how well it went for him that $2 million figure got out there before the season last year at K-State. But reportedly, a 3-year, $5.1 million contract per the agent that's fully guaranteed, right? So prep offensive tackle getting $5.1 million fully guaranteed over 3 years from Texas Tech. And so it's like the combination of Texas Tech getting the player and then seeing what the dollar figure is right away that has everybody really freaking out right now, because it now allows everybody to just be like, okay, well, clearly it's the money, right? People, you see a high dollar figure and you run straight to the money. It couldn't be that Texas Tech has a great thing going with facilities. They've got facilities about as good as anybody in the country. There's a ton of momentum. Joey McGuire is a really personable head coach. They are a program that has been steadily on the rise a bit in the Big 12. It can't be any of that. It's clearly only the money, right? Who would, I saw this over and over. Go check message board geniuses if you want to see good Lubbock slander. I mean, it was just, you couldn't pay me $5 million to go live in Lubbock. You see that all over the place. And to me, it's just, one, very funny to see Texas and SEC fans react like this. But two, there's a real hypocrisy in this that I'm going to get to. First and foremost, like I say this all the time about Lubbock, it's a pretty great place. If you actually go there, it's hard to get to. And that part does suck. As someone who has driven from Manhattan to Lubbock like 5 or 6 times, I can't remember how many times I did over the years, at least 5. Yeah, it's tough to get to. But once you're there, it's a pretty great place. And even if you are in a place that doesn't have like Austin level entertainment options for you, you're going there to play football. Like, be focused on football. Problem with Texas tried to pimp out the Austin thing for 15 years. And they got guys that seem to be a little too interested in hanging out at Austin and not just putting their nose to the grindstone and becoming football players. And that's how you get high-level recruiting classes that are not making the Big 12 championship game for a decade and a half. So, look, the kid wants to go somewhere where he can just put his head down and get ready for the football season all the time. Not many distractions, incredible facilities, like world-class football facilities with a really personable head coach. And yes, also a great NIL deal. I mean, that seems to make a lot of sense to me. And the hypocrisy here is, I mean, were players not choosing Texas because of the money? Like, are we why is the assumption that, okay, Texas Tech gets this kid, this must be purely somebody who's interested in the money? Could never be anything else, when Texas has money whipped players also. This is from February. And shout out to my guy, Derek Young, who retweeted this the other day and pointed this out, quote tweeted it. On three's Chad Simmons on how Texas flipped 5-star defensive lineman Justice Terry from Georgia. Quote, I don't know how else to say it, just a straight up better NIL package. That was March, April, May, June, like 4 months ago. 4 months ago, Texas just came in and money whipped a kid away from Georgia. And now they're going to cry foul about Texas Tech coming in and laying out the best NIL offer and getting the number 1 prospect in the state of Texas. What are we doing here? Why is there this double standard when it comes to Texas Tech and the Big 12, right? Because it's very representative of the Big 12. It's the SEC and the Big 12 here, both of these schools being the representatives there. Why would anybody ever go play in the Big 12? Why would anybody ever go play at Texas Tech? Why would this happen? It has to just be the money. Meanwhile, why did that kid go to Texas instead of Georgia? Well, it was just money. And who cares? And then you see it trickle into debates about the pay for play and the current era that we're in. Like, oh, this is such a problem, and guardrails, and the money's so out of control. When Texas Tech does it, it's the money's out of control, and this is such a crazy. I've never heard of Justice Terry. I mean, he's a huge prospect. If you follow recruiting, I'm sure you have. Most people don't know who Justice Terry is. A lot of people now know about Felix Ojo because of this deal. Like, nobody made a big deal about Texas just straight up offering more money to get a kid away from Georgia. Nobody cares. When it's Texas, when it's Texas Tech, it's this huge deal. And it's just such a ridiculous double standard, some hypocrisy coming from SEC country, but I think even just the college football world at large, that people couldn't possibly believe that you'd want to go play in the Big 12. Yeah, it's not like a Big 12 team could ever beat Texas in this era. I mean, we didn't see anything like that certainly last year, this new era we're in. There were zero indications last year the Big 12 team could ever compete on the same field with Texas. Wouldn't even come close. Oh, that's right. I'm being told that Arizona State had Texas down in overtime in a 4th and 13 stop away from winning a game in a college football playoff quarterfinal. Yeah, that's right. Shove it. You can come to Texas Tech and you can beat Texas in the playoff. Like, that is 1,000% a thing that can happen. We basically saw it last year. Okay. So I'll take the evidence. This kid wants to go be concerned with football, live in a great place, but a place that doesn't have crazy distractions like Austin, be focused on football, use world-class facilities, have an incredibly personable head coach, a guy that I'm looking forward to hopefully talking to next week. He was maybe my favorite interview last year, and Joey McGuire. And take in, yes, a very competitive compensation package. Just another one of those perceptions that the Big 12 is fighting against, man. It gets a little exhausting. It gets a little exhausting, but it looks like this kid wants to be focused on football instead of being focused on 6th Street. I'll take it. All right, Eddie, what's up, Eddie? If you want to submit a super chat, click the $ below the chat box in order to do that. Guarantees that your question or comment makes it on the show tonight. I appreciate you, Eddie. Thank you so much for being here. Eddie, hi, buddy. You going to Media Days? Yes, I will be there. Looking forward to that very much. Flying out tomorrow to get to DFW. ACC days are numbered. I think the Big Ten will take Notre Dame and Stanford. SEC does not have to make a move, but if they do, North Carolina and Virginia. Yeah, I don't, nothing, if anything, the takeaways from the documents, I think it was a 68-page document that Matt Baker from The Athletic was able to procure of the ACC settlement. That's one of the big stories of the week. If anything, you come away from it feeling like, yeah, the days definitely seem numbered. I mean, they're going to have this like 5-year window, but after that, I mean, there's a Super League clause in it, basically. That's been the big juicy headline from it. So it does seem like their days are numbered, but it seems like it's not going to be tomorrow. So I am with you on that. I'm definitely with you on that. Big Ten and Notre Dame, though, that's the interesting one. Will that ever happen? I kind of feel like we might. I mean, I feel like at this point we would get to a Super League before that would happen. Like Notre Dame would just be lumped in with everybody in a Super League before we would get them joining the Big Ten. But we'll see, man. You never know. You never know. That maybe that's the story of next summer. Eddie, appreciate you. If you guys need a real estate agent in San Antonio, you know who to call. My guy, Eddie Lozano, San Antonio Real Estate. Oh, Eddie popping back up in here. What's up, Eddie? I love Texas Tech showing up the SEC. I hope they can produce a high-quality championship team. I love Texas Tech, but sometimes they lay an egg. Sorry to laugh, Texas Tech fans. 2 years ago was really the one. I think there was like more hype. That was the year I picked them to win the Big 12, I believe. And the Wyoming game at the beginning of the year, rough start. Great finish, but rough start for sure. Texas Tech, though, has not. I mean, there has been hype for Texas Tech teams before. Not like this. This is on a different level, both in terms of the hype and in terms of like the actual talent that's there on the roster. So this is a different thing. I will be clear because I've been somebody that has said over and over, like, Tech's got to prove it to me. I've got to see them do it before I will put stock again. I got fool me once, right? Shame on you. Fool me twice. Shame on me. I just about George Bush that thing. So because I picked them a couple of years ago to win the league, I did not do it this year. I did submit a ballot to the Gambling Gauchos. Ironically, when the Big 12 takes away the media ballot, I finally submit one. I just do it through the unofficial one with Gambling Gauchos. I did not pick Texas Tech to win the league. They have to prove it to me, but I will also acknowledge this is a different deal. There is way more talent on this roster than any of those Tech teams before. And if they do produce a high-quality championship team, I mean, I think that can be very good for the Big 12. Depending on how this new era goes and how fair market value is legislated and all of that, it could just be a huge sign. Texas Tech could be a big symbol for like, oh, wait, like anybody really can. If you get the money, anybody really can compete at any level they want to right now. So Tech is a very, very interesting case study. Appreciate you, Eddie. Carter, what's up, Carter? Carter says, and right now Tech is already crystal balled for 2 5-stars from the 2027 class, including the number 1 player overall. Damn, I'm not sure I'd even seen that. I feel like maybe I saw one of those kids in the 2027 class. That's crazy. Man, Texas Tech is just getting after it. I do wonder. Now, the one thing about that, Carter, is you do have to think more about budgeting now because there is the rev share cap and we still don't know. Like, nobody knows right now how the fair market value thing is going to go and how much wiggle room there will be with that. So you could, if you get too crazy with paying high school prospects, that could hamstring your ability to pay your current roster. If things go well, if you win the Big 12 this year, your roster is going to get more expensive and people are going to come snooping around it. So that you got to have money left for that. You're going to need people in the portal, if you want to, a huge portal class again, it's not going to be an unlimited money spigot anymore, at least not quite in the same way. So that would be my only concern with that. Obviously, I'm not telling Texas Tech fans to not be excited. I think it's a great thing, not only for them, but for the Big 12. But that's one thing we were talking about on the 3 Mile podcast the other day is how do you try? That's such a difficult task, trying to budget that money without even knowing exactly what this landscape is going to look like. So anyway, thank you, Carter, for passing that along to me. Man, guns up, baby. Guns up. Caleb, what's up? Caleb says West Virginia Big 12 champs 2025. Thank you, Caleb, for chiming in there. Well, Caleb, nobody did a media poll, so at least that yet. We'll see what the Game of Gauchos one is. West Virginia, maybe they are the champ. Caleb, I will encourage you to go subscribe to Open for Business, the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter, ofbnews.com. And there I sent out this past week a fan poll. So I'm going to do a fan poll here, see who the fans pick as the Big 12 champ. If you haven't, Caleb, you can vote in that fan poll and pick West Virginia number 1. I did get a comment, and I appreciated this. And thank you, by the way, Caleb. I appreciated a reader/listener who emailed me after I sent that out and was like, having to do this and actually order 16 teams, 1 through 16, it actually made me realize just how tough of a task this is. This is kind of a hard thing to do in the Big 12. This is kind of a hard thing to do. So yeah, anyway, I was like, yeah, it's not that. 1, proves the point about this conference. 2, I suppose absolves the media a little bit from any blame, or at least as much blame, for last year picking Arizona State 16th and BYU 13th, all of that. But also it's hey, sometimes, we yell and scream at the media, but then you go through and look at, all right, that job is a little tough. It's a little tough to do some of those things. Caleb, you can go to ofbnews.com to get subscribed to the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter. If you want the direct link to that, I can't put it in the chat. It doesn't let you post links there. But if you go to my Twitter account, just twitter.com, JL Kurtz, you can find, it was a couple days ago, I tweeted a direct link to it. So then you could get direct access to that post if you want it. Or just send me a DM or something on Twitter and we can get it figured out. So, okay. Fun discussion so far. Yes. I like this one. This is, look, for people who are tired of some of the big picture stuff, we're going to get to more big picture later on in the show. You want just football talk? This is a good Big 12 football segment. All right. Good Big 12 football segment here. The most important team in the Big 12 this year is not one of the teams that I'm seeing being picked regularly to win the league. It's also not Texas Tech, who we were just talking about, who's eating up a lot of ink. And Texas Tech, you could make a fairly compelling case for, actually, because of the money that they're spending. And if they do go out and really upset the apple cart, make the playoff, win a game or two, something like that, we're seeing how much they're getting under the SEC skin already. You can make a case that Texas Tech would be the most important team. I'm not going to say, though, that that's who it is. It's actually a team that many thought was going to fire its coach last year, which is a little bit crazy. So how does that happen? A lot of people, I think, would also say, well, Arizona State, John, is the most important team in the Big 12 this year because last year, you make this point all the time, John, they ditched the media poll because team being picked at the bottom of the league wins the league. That's terrible for perception of the league nationally, and it really hurt when it came to at-large time with the college football playoff. So you'd want Arizona State to win because they're up at the top. They've got the juice from last year. They've got a young, hot coach in Kenny Dillingham that everybody really likes right now. They've got a coveted quarterback who's, being ranked in the top 5 of returning quarterbacks this year across college football. He's a big name. They've got a first-round receiver. These are names and stars that guys know. And you want to avoid what happened last year. So take ASU, Arizona State. But they're also starting in the top 15 in many cases. They have been ranked that highly. So the higher you start, better shot you have for leeway right. Arizona State, most important team. I understand the case that you'd be making there, but I would disagree. Arizona State might be the best team in the league. I will tell you that is who I picked to win the league. But I do not think that they are the most important team. I've even made the case that, hey, if you want to talk about most important games that the Big 12 is going to play, Oklahoma State playing in Autzen on September 6th against Oregon. In some ways, you could debate, hey, that's the team that's playing the most important game in the Big 12, because what game does the Big 12 possibly have more to gain the entire season than Oklahoma State at Oregon? That's as good as it gets. If you beat Oregon, man, what does that do for the league's perception? You go win at Autzen the year after they were the number one seed in the college football playoff. Like, that would be a hell of a feather in the cap for the league. And especially if it was a team that went winless in the Big 12 last year in Oklahoma State, massive credit there. Even if, a lot of that narrative would probably quickly turn to, well, Oregon must suck. Dante Moore is not it. I'm sure that's where a lot of it would go, but it would still give you a lot of credibility if that happened. But that's not the team that I'm picking either. It's a good mix of all of this, right? It's a good mix of all of this. A team that does have some star power, is getting a decent amount of juice this offseason, but most importantly, has, I think, the most consequential non-con schedule of anybody in the Big 12. And again, I want to thank Shahan Jayaraja for pointing this out. I was listening to him on the Bosco's Boys podcast. Great for K-State fans. Definitely go give it a listen. And anybody, this is a Baylor preview that Shahan Jayaraja was doing. And he mentioned this to me, like he mentioned this on the show, Baylor might be the most important team in the Big 12 because look at their non-conference schedule. Baylor played the first 2 weeks of Baylor's schedule. Are you guys aware of this? The first 2 weeks of Baylor's schedule. They play Auburn week 1, August 29th. That is at McLean. And then they go to SMU the very next week on September 6th. These are two teams that are both generating a lot of buzz. A lot of buzz. People, the consensus seems to be that SMU is going to be a better team this year. Kevin Jennings is back, and I think most view it as a deeper, more talented roster around him. Obviously, they have the experience of making the playoff last year. And then Auburn, I mean, scoff if you want. I understand scoffing a little bit because their season will definitely be contingent on Jackson Arnold being a good quarterback, and he did not look like that at all last year with Oklahoma. Now, he was paired up with Seth Luttrell, a now fired offensive coordinator who didn't even make it through the end of October last year. So that reason to be skeptical about how much of a chance he was really given there, but also a reason to be skeptical about, like, does this guy really have it? But Auburn's got a pretty loaded roster around him. They're number 14 in ESPN's FPI. And even if you don't like that, I mean, I'm seeing Auburn kind of a sleeper college football playoff pick from people out there because the idea is if Jackson Arnold hits, it's going to be a really good team. So that's a huge game right out of the gate. It's a huge 1-2 right out of the gate for Baylor. You knock off an SEC team that's generating a lot of hype that people think has a chance to be a dark horse contender in that league this year. And then you follow it up by winning at a playoff team last year from the ACC and SMU. Like, that's a massive chance for the Big 12 to gain some credibility through one team there in Baylor, through a team that was 2-4 at one point last year. Like, you want all this SEC hypothetical talk to continue, or do you want to start knocking it down? If you can start knocking it down with a team that last year was 2-4, ready to fire its coach, embarrassing moment that everybody saw, the Hail Mary against Colorado, victory cigar formation, all of that for Dave Aranda. People think he's done. They're going to get run out of town. Man, you can go out with that team building off the 6 straight at the end of the regular season last year. Sawyer Robertson, hot name, shooting up top quarterback charts in college football. And by the end of the first full week in September, you've got wins in your back pocket over SMU on the road and Auburn at home. That can do a lot in building a pro Big 12 narrative. Really, no matter what Baylor does the rest of the year, because even if Baylor struggles the rest of the year, okay, well, the Big 12 is good enough to be giving a Baylor team that had that in them a rough time. I mean, that seems like a pretty nice narrative. Or if Baylor's up there fighting for an at-large bid, that's pretty damn nice too. They would not get the same treatment that, well, I say this. I don't think they would get the same treatment that BYU got last year. BYU fans have to be like screaming at their computer or phone, wherever you're watching this right now, saying, look, dude, we beat SMU on the road last year. And what happened to us when it came time to talk about at-large bids? Fair enough. And this is where I think part of the discussion here, Baylor being most important in the league, comes in the fact that they will be like a fringe top 25 team. I would bet that they'll be receiving votes in the initial AP and coaches polls that come out. They're starting higher up than BYU was when they were pinned 13th in the Big 12, and nobody really expected anything from them last year. So I think that will help. That will help. It is also a 1-2. They have the SEC opponent also there in Auburn. For those of you who are way too online and you get annoyed by the ACC stuff, the SMU stuff, there are benefits on the fringes as well of Baylor shutting up SMU. I was reading, whose tweet was it that I saw today? I was reading some SMU fans respond, and I was just like, boy, nobody should have armed SMU fans with, one, the internet, and two, a playoff season last year, because it got out of hand. It got out of hand. I guess Rhett Lashley is going to have the next Alabama dynasty there in DFW. Anyway, can Baylor do it? All right. So then there's the question. All right, John, that you set me up here. Maybe I'm even buying in. I see some of you in the chat, maybe not quite so much, but buying in on Baylor being maybe the most important team in the Big 12. Can they actually do it? Well, I love that the Auburn game is early, and I love that it's at home, because when we're talking about Jackson Arnold, maybe he is going to be a lot better at Auburn with Hugh Freeze and Derek Nix as opposed to working with Brent Venables and Seth Luttrell. You can definitely sell me on that. I'd be kind of hypocritical if you couldn't, because I've been very critical of Brent Venables. But I don't know if that's going to happen in game one in a road game at a pretty good, competent team, more than competent team in Baylor. So I like the odds there. SMU is going to be a lot tougher, man. SMU will want that game badly. Obviously the old Southwest Conference connections there, but also just a team from the Big 12, a local team, a team that has a lot of juice. It's going to be a road game. That makes it more difficult for Baylor still toward the beginning of the year. If Baylor doesn't have the kinks worked out, it seems like a tough ask for Baylor to go 2-0 there, but I definitely think it's possible. I mean, do they have it in them? Yeah, sure. They could absolutely have it in them. And that would be a huge boost to the Big 12 this year. Huge boost. All right. Let's chat with David. If you have a super chat to submit, click the $sign below the chat box. Appreciate everybody who does that. What's up, David? David says, how about TCU's non-conference schedule? North Carolina and SMU the first 3 weeks. Yes, TCU has a very tough schedule. It's why, if you go look at TCU's over-under win total, they're at 6.5. I think if they had a different non-con schedule and really Big 12 schedule in general, they would be a team. They should be, if you were like power rating them instead of ranking them, which takes the schedule out of it, they should absolutely be in that same range of everybody else who's like 7.5. But you got to dock them because they go to North Carolina, which, they can definitely win that game. They go to North Carolina, first game of the year. It will be fascinating. That's the Labor Day game on Monday. Then they've got SMU in week 3, but then their Big 12 schedule. They're at Arizona State, at K-State. They've got Baylor at home, at West Virginia, Iowa State at home, at BYU. The road schedule there. At North Carolina, at Arizona State, at K-State, at West Virginia, at BYU. That's a hell of a road schedule. That's really tough. And then in between there, you've got SMU and Baylor and Iowa State at home. Really tough schedule on paper. Really, really tough schedule on paper. The thing there, David, would just be no SEC team. So you're playing SMU, but you don't have the SEC team. And the juice doesn't quite match there. North Carolina will be big from just an eyeball standpoint because everyone will be very curious to see what's going to happen with Bill Belichick. But it won't have the same juice in terms of just impact if you get a win as it would to beat Auburn. Let's see. James, what's going on, James? James, thank you for being here. Thank you for your support. James says, John, I'm an Alabama native, MSU grad. I assume that's a Mississippi State grad and season ticket holder. James, is this a Mississippi State? I see your question. What do you think of the odds that State could be in the Big 12? I follow you partly due to how badly I want it. Man, okay. James, I need you to follow up with what MSU you're talking about here. Because of the proximity there, I assume Mississippi State, but I want to know this for sure. I I'm trying to think if there's an MSU that I think could be in the Big 12. I don't foresee that happening. I think what you could have happening eventually is like a Super League where everybody is sort of on equal playing field if they're not a big brand. Okay, James does say Mississippi State. Yeah, I don't see it because the only world in which something like that happens is if the SEC and Big Ten were to decide to start cutting the bottom of their conferences, which they have basically found a way around doing that, which is thanks to the ACC. More on that in a moment later on in the show. But the ACC figured out like, oh, hey, we can just unequal revenue share by giving more money to the teams that draw more TV viewers and that fare better on the field will just skew the revenue unequally to them. And that's how you basically cut out the bottom without having to go through the messy process of kicking them out of the conference. So what I'm sure you'll see from the SEC soon is they'll do the same thing. And your bigger brands, your Alabama, LSU, Georgias, they will get more of the SEC pie. Mississippi State will make less. They'll still get to be in the SEC, but they just won't have as much money. They'll be at a little bit more of a disadvantage. That's really, I guess you could call it brilliance. I mean, it all sort of sucks, but it's a way to avoid having to deal with messy politics and just a messy situation of kicking teams out of your conference and still making more money, feeling better about it. So I don't, sadly, James, for your personal interest, think that is going to happen. But I will say I went to watch the K-State Mississippi State. Well, I covered the Mississippi State K-State game in 2019. I enjoyed my time at Davis Wade, hanging out with the Cowbells, and the only open air press box that I've ever been to. That was the thing that I remember about that experience. That open air press box was very, very interesting. Speaking of the sun and my face and the, pre-cancerous thing, I had to get frozen off because I'm not using enough sunscreen. That would have been one of the days that contributed to that. I definitely remember getting a sunburn from that game at Davis Wade. So anyway, thank you, James. I appreciate you, my man. Thank you for your support of the channel, and thank you for being here. Okay, let's see here. Yeah. All right. So I'm curious for the chat's reaction to this one, guys. I'm very curious for the chat's reaction to this one. Realignment's been kind of dead for a little while since it's the ACC settlement. So, of course, we're in July. The Athletic fires back up the realignment talk. Okay, ready for this one? Well, the Big 12 take in some ACC teams and what amounts to a blockbuster trade. Can I interest you in a blockbuster Big 12 ACC trade? This one got a lot of people fired up online on Twitter. So we'll see what it does here. Let me know. Let me know in the comments. Do not be shy. There was a lot of talk there for a minute about the ACC and the Big 12, with the assumption being, hey, ACC is ticking time bomb. It's going to implode at some point. And then the Big 12 can take Louisville, Pitt, teams from that tier. And that was a pretty common talking point thought for a while. Now, I mean, I guess that's really still there, but we've pushed that timeline off because it, with the settlement, looks like that would be 2030-ish at the earliest. Hell, we even had, if you're talking about Big 12 ACC, I mean, this was literally, we're speaking of 1 year anniversaries. We're getting close to the 1 year anniversary of Ross Dellinger revealing that he thought that the Big 12 and ACC had been talking a little bit. The Big 12 and Florida State Clemson had been talking a little bit. That was right around this time last year when that's where we were. So you want to know how much things can change in a year. That's where we were. That was the big story. Florida State and Clemson trying to force their way out. We had the storyline for like a week or two of, well, could the Big 12 be kind of like a last ditch option for them if they had to? Obviously does not look at all like that is going to happen right now. The ACC settlement kind of locked things in for the next 5 years or so, but hey, Stuart Mandel from The Athletic, polarizing figure around here. But Stuart Mandel is keeping that story going just in a different way. So let me show you this tweet from him. It came from his mailbag. So it's actually, I shouldn't pin this all on Stuart Mandel. It was not he who suggested this. It was one of his readers. He says, hey, Stu, what if the ACC and Big 12 made a trade? All right. So there's the blockbuster trade. You guys ready for the trade? Cincinnati, West Virginia, and UCF to the ACC. Stanford, Cal, and SMU to the Big 12. Who says no? And Stu says makes way too much sense. Stanford and Cal get to reunite with the Four Corners. plus frequent non-con foe BYU. SMU gets back natural rival TCU and former Southwest Conference teams, Baylor, Texas Tech, and Houston. Then on the flip side, Cincinnati and West Virginia, they used to be in the Big East with Pitt, Syracuse, Louisville, Boston College. And UCF, instead of having to go to Stillwater and Ames, can go to Tallahassee and Miami. Who says no? All right. Now, I'm not going to lie. There is a little bit of something to that, right? I mean, I'm not going to say that that's like a totally terrible comp or scenario all the way across the board because, I mean, for one thing, I know it was a big deal last year when UCF got to go play Florida. So if all of a sudden you're getting to play Florida State and Miami on the reg, I know that would be exciting. I don't know how well it would go. UCF, has a ways to go to be competitive, as we saw from last year against, an okay Florida team, but they were not very competitive there. Cincinnati, old rivals, less travel. That makes sense. I get that. West Virginia, for a long time, there's a lot of talk about the ACC. And I think from West Virginia travel standpoint, not just monetarily speaking, how much you could save on travel, but there's a clear travel burden for West Virginia. I think it makes it tougher in all their sports to be successful because you got to travel more and that wears on your body. And it makes life a little bit more difficult. So there are some merits to that. Right. And, then looking at it from the other side, hey, Stanford and Cal not having to travel all the way out to the Atlantic coast, getting to stop halfway and then have some of their old Pac-12 foes back into it. That would ease some of the burden on them. But man, I can't get behind this if for no other reason than like Cal and Stanford do not, obviously the cultural differences people will point out, but to me, what's more important is like they don't have the same level of investment in football and men's basketball right now that what the Big 12 does. Like, we opened the show tonight talking about Texas Tech, who is just shaking everything up by relentlessly using everything they've got resource-wise to go pursue number one recruiting classes, top-ranked prospects, all of these things. Totally shifting the culture there in the state of Texas and ruffling feathers doing it. That is not what Cal and Stanford are doing. They also do not have fan bases that are big or that care. Shout out to the Calgorithm. I shouldn't be so critical of Cal fans. They were very funny on the internet last year. I do appreciate that. I have been to a Stanford game that Stanford had a great team. They played K-State. There were like 1,000 people in the stands for a night game at the beginning of the year. It was like a Friday night game on Fox. Nobody was there. I need fan bases that care. I need schools that are all in. Brett Yormark is talking about we've got to bet on ourselves with this 5+11 playoff thing. I need schools that are all in. Now, SMU is kind of the total opposite. They are all in. So much so that they're taking no payment from the conference for a while, right? So they are. But SMU, I think, is a little redundant for the Big 12 being in DFW. I'm not sure that negates some of how much of a win it would be to have SMU in the conference, even if they are going to compete at a high level like they did last year. SMU's value goes up exponentially to a conference that does not have a foothold in the state of Texas. So it's a little less valuable for the Big 12, and it makes TCU a little less valuable because I think that hurts TCU a bit from just a talent acquisition standpoint, having somebody else in their metro area that would be in the conference. So, I don't think it fits for a lot of reasons there. I mean, Cal and Stanford are they're not consistently playing good enough football or men's basketball to really, it just feels like dead weight. It feels like a lot of dead weight. Again, Cal, maybe not totally fair for Cal. Maybe not totally fair for Cal. But if we're talking about the last 10 to 15 years, I think that is a more fair statement there. So I have my doubts about where exactly that would go. Like, there's just not a lot of upside in Cal Stanford. Of course, Cal Stanford, they would never stoop themselves to being in the Big 12, which is, to make a counterpoint to myself, really the only reason I would kind of want to see it. Imagine having to watch Cal and Stanford squirm being in the same conference as K-State, Iowa State, Texas Tech, all these schools that they would thumb their nose at, and having to make road trips to all those towns to play football games. Like that would be very entertaining. maybe I shouldn't have even used football games to be like, sending the Stanford swim and dive team, right? They would hate it. And that would be very entertaining and funny. But all in all, no, I don't. I don't really want this. And man, it was like a visceral reaction from everybody on Twitter. Nobody wanted it. Nobody wanted it. Not at all. I'm trying to see here. Not getting a stronger reaction, I would say, in the YouTube chat tonight. Anyway, well, here we go. Browns and Beers. Browns and Beers says no on the trade from this West Virginia fan. The ACC would be nice for the rivalries, but the Big 12 towns I've been to felt like Morgantown without the hills. It's funny you say that, Browns and Beers, because I tell people all the time, I'm like, Morgantown was my favorite trip I had 10 years, covered K-State, every road game I went to. And my favorite trip was Morgantown, West Virginia, because it was so unique because of the hills. I was like, this is a great college town, great tailgate scene, but it's got this really interesting landscape, topography. Like it just, completely unique from anywhere else I was going in the Big 12. And so you're right. It is very similar in terms of how the people care. Great tailgating, great stadium, great environment. But yeah, very different in terms of the geography there. So I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad to hear that, Browns and Beers. Glad to hear that. Plus, I mean, look, guys, I mentioned SMU Twitter earlier. You guys want SMU Twitter? You want to welcome that into the conference? Have fun with that. So anyway, look, that's a very July topic, but it was a good one. It was a good one. I'll say that. As much as people were kind of crapping on the deal, like, hey, I would never do that. I don't want that. That's a good, interesting hypothetical. That's how you do July content. All right. From one content creator to another, Stuart Mandel and your reader. I forget the guy's name. He was from Columbus, Ohio. Andy to Andy J from Columbus, Ohio. Great job. Great job producing July content when we're all desperately, desperately looking for it. Okay. Please do like the video. Everybody who is here. We have gone up quite a bit. Now over 1,000 people in here. Like the video. If you're on Twitter, you can just go to youtube.com, search John Kurtz, like the video, subscribe to the channel. That would really help me. Make sure you're subscribed to the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter. We are now over 25K on the YouTube channel, and we are about 25 subscribers away from 5,000 to the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter. So make sure you get signed up there. Appreciate all you guys who do it. You can, the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter right now, subscribe, or rather vote in the Big 12 preseason fan poll. So if you want to predict West Virginia to win the Big 12, like we had somebody do earlier here on the show, you can definitely do that. If you want to be like my guy Caleb and pick the Mountaineers to win it, you can. You can fill out your own ballot. ofbnews.com to get signed up for the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter. And John-Kurtz-4 on Venmo. If you're not watching live, you can shoot me a question or comment there attached to your donation, and I will kick off the next show with it. Finally here tonight, got the ACC settlement, some ACC settlement details. The ACC is clearly prepping for a Super League mass exodus. And if you go through the details of the settlement, it makes you start thinking like, man, the way all this wound up, it feels like the ACC is thinking when, not if. When, not if on this deal. Certainly on teams leaving the league in general, but this makes it feel like, all right, they definitely think this Super League is a big threat. Now, people are going to come back and say, well, John, isn't that great? Project Rudy. I don't think the idea here is Project Rudy, the way this is written, unfortunately. Project Rudy would include the rest of the ACC. This definitely would not. So shout out to Matt Baker at The Athletic. So I saw the name Matt Baker. I was like, oh, he's at The Athletic now. I guess he was with like the Tampa Bay Times. Let me fact check that for you. He's a great journalist. He's done an excellent job. Okay, yeah. Previously spent 9 years at the Tampa Bay Times. He's now at The Athletic. That guy is awesome. I've had him on the show before, and he did a hell of a job reporting on all the Clemson, Florida State, ACC battle going on. But he got a hold of the official settlements. Okay. The official settlement it's 68 pages, and it is officially called, I'm calling it a settlement here, officially called an option of limited withdrawal. This is the juiciest part of the settlement. My fault. Juiciest part of the settlement is an option of limited withdrawal. Okay. And this is what has everybody talking about. Basically, it's a Super League clause. There's a Super League clause in this thing that give Florida State, Clemson, Miami, North Carolina, whoever is going to be an out to get into a Super League if it were to happen. So it says, suppose at least 6 members want to leave the same sport. Okay, that's key language. Suppose at least 6 members want to leave the same sport to join a single sport league, conference, or other association alongside other schools. In that case, they'll owe $75 million or 50% of the current withdrawal figure, whichever is greater. In practice, that would allow Florida State, Clemson, Miami, North Carolina, and a few other top programs to leave for a Super League in football, while remaining ACC members in basketball, baseball, and every other sport. So that's the interesting part here. It's like, man, this to me is just like a cherry on top for what Florida State and Clemson did here. It's like, not only did they drastically reduce, remember, they thought it was going to cost like $500 million at one point. That's what their attorneys had estimated it. Now, that's probably a high estimate because that's what they're going to throw out in court. But they thought it was going to be 9 figures to get out of this thing. Now, the exit fee drops to $75 million by 2030, which is when everyone thinks movement will be happening anyway. And you can even use that $75 million to just bail on football and keep the rest of your sports in the ACC. So that's the ACC, Florida State and Clemson. Outside of it just being 0 and like, hey, you can leave tomorrow, I really do feel like this is about as well as they could have done with all of this. Because in addition to that, you've obviously got the revenue stuff where now you can make up to $20 million more per year. That's Clemson's estimate anyway, with the brand initiatives, just by having more people watch you on TV. And then also success initiatives if you're going to be performing well on the field, which Clemson certainly expects themselves to this year. They are, to some, a national championship contender this year. So you combine that now with, all right, now you've got an option for Super League. It's not just that we have to leave for the Big Ten or the SEC. There's a Super League option. You guys get the call up to the Super League. Don't worry, you can still come play basketball and volleyball and whatever with the rest of the ACC. No problem. No problem. A little bit more here. Let's see. Yeah, Florida State had estimated the cost could exceed $500 million to leave under the settlement. Cost to leave is $165 million this upcoming fiscal year, but it drops by $18 million annually until it gets to $75 million in 2030, and it'll stay that way until the end of the contract through 2036. But I don't really know a soul out there who thinks that it's actually going to make its way to the end of the contract in 2036. Crucially, here's another detail. Crucially, departing schools keep their future TV rights. If those rights had remained with the ACC, Clemson or Florida State would have added significantly less value to a new conference. So yeah, that's the whole deal, right? Your grant of rights, grant of TV rights. Theoretically, that meant in the past world that we were living in, that if you were to leave a conference, they would still have the rights, the TV rights to your home games. They would still get the money for your home games. And that's obviously a massive deal if you're leaving for another conference. So they're helped by that. If you want the specifics on how the money gets split with the brand initiative, the first 40% of TV money will be split evenly, and then the remaining 60% gets split up, with 3/4 being distributed based on football TV viewership and another 1/4 based on men's basketball viewership. So that's all the detail you got on that. It does note other details were redacted and claimed as trade secrets. But that's pretty good info to get out there on what the split is. 60% of the 100% total piece of the pie of multimedia revenue, so your TV revenue, is going to get divvied up as a part of the brand initiative. This is even just brand, okay? And 75% of that 60% is football TV viewership. So that's big news, obviously, for like a Florida State. That's basically it. It notes that Clemson estimated the new model could give them an extra $120 million over a 6-year period if things go well with the brand and success initiatives. So, I will reiterate again, dust is settled here. Obviously, a lot of what this means is we're still just pushing toward 2030. I mean, Doesn't seem to me like it would be very likely that you're going to get Florida State or Clemson paying to leave early unless something major changes between now and then. But when I say early, I mean before 2030. And then once that exit fee gets whacked down to $75 million in 2030, whatever movement starts to happen with the tectonic plates of conference realignment, who knows by then, they're going to be out. And it seems like the ACC is now expecting that obviously it could happen with the Big Ten or the SEC, but very well could also be a Super League that only the upper crust gets invited to, and they are preparing for that. And they have kind of paved the runway for that to happen as well for Florida State and Clemson. And you just look at this thing overall, they got the exit fee reduced by like 5 times plus. They have the opportunity to earn $20 million more per year on the field and with brand incentives. They've got the flexibility to leave for a reasonable number for the Super League and then keep their other sports in the ACC. It's using your leverage pretty well. You know, the perception originally with Florida State, and hey, I was on board with this where I was kind of like, man, this just seems like they're reckless. They're like bull in a china shop, just coming in, trying to mess everything all up and just bully their way out of this thing. Now it actually kind of looks like maybe that was more strategic than we gave everybody credit for. I mean, I think we knew it was strategic at the time, but more down the strategic road than we would have thought at the time with the way everything ended up here. So anyway, okay. Oh, we did get a Texas fan in here. Texas Tech fans, with the title of the video. So gotta love that. Thank you, everybody, for being here tonight. Please do like the video on your way out. I'd appreciate that. Subscribe. Thank you to everybody for getting me over 25,000 subscribers. Means a ton to me. Thank you, everybody who supports this channel and has for years now. Years. What other reminders do I have? Subscribe to the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter, ofbnews.com. Right now, with the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter, you can vote in the Big 12 preseason fan poll. We've got no media poll this year. Gambling Gauchos is coming out with that, but we're also giving you the opportunity to vote as fans. So take me up on it. We've got, I saw earlier today, we were getting close to 300 fans that have weighed in there. So get some more. I think I've got another week or so on that poll. I'll be tweeting out links as well. So you can follow me on Twitter at @JLKurtz to get that. And yeah, I think that's about it. I am flying out tomorrow night to DFW. Big 12 Media Days, Tuesday and Wednesday. We'll be there at the Star in Frisco. Very much looking forward to it. Thank you for all the kind words about the precancerous stuff on my forehead. Thank you, everybody, for that. Hopefully that will continue to heal by the next time you see me. And it will be less noticeable. But you know what? Said screw it and did the show here anyway, all right? Because I love you guys, all right? So thank you. Take care, and I will talk to you all very soon.